Thank you for joining us. I'm Kristen Miller, President and CEO of the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce. The inaugural State of the County information we're presenting today is important, timely, and relevant, even though it was filmed last Thursday, December 3rd, before the California governor's shutdown announcement. A lot has changed since then, but the leaders you will hear from today speak eloquently to what we all assumed was coming in the form of new orders from the state, and we thank them for doing this event. We were also meeting last week, not just to film, but to proactively prepare. We were asking the county to make sure that retail and outdoor dining could be protected from any shutdown orders because of these industries' good methods for protecting public health while employing people during the holidays. We didn't quite get what we asked for, but we did discuss and endorse the current plan to separate our three-county region from the larger Southern California region in relationship to the stay-at-home order. We are vociferously supporting the county's efforts to make sure our tri-county region is considered and can potentially come out of the shutdown order after the 3-week mandatory period. Each of the chambers of commerce in all 3 counties, Santa Barbara, Ventura, and San Luis Obispo, are circulating a petition to gather signatures from our businesses and will be sending this robust list of support to the governor this afternoon. Our goal is to continue and improve our methods of slowing the spread of COVID and strive to come out of the stay-at-home order in December in the red tier, allowing personal services, outdoor dining, and most importantly, in-person school instruction for our students. The Chamber will continue to work on our roadmap to recovery initiative and offer more data and proposed solutions when we present the plan in January. For today, please enjoy the Santa Barbara State of the County.
Good morning. I'm Kristen Miller, President and CEO of the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce, and I'm delighted to be here today hosting the inaugural Santa Barbara State of the County. I want to start by thanking all of the chambers in Santa Barbara County for partnering with us on this event and helping us provide timely, relevant, and trustworthy information from our elected officials and county leadership teams. This year has been full of change and uncertainty. The Goleta, Santa Barbara, and Carpinteria Chambers of Commerce merged to form a powerful and effective organization with 1,100 members and a unified voice for business. The newly merged chamber quickly assessed what businesses needed most and pivoted our program of work to new programs, including a 3-part series of State of the City presentations, culminating with this State of the County event. We're proud to be the leading business support organization providing timely, relevant, and trustworthy information to inform our business community members and provide a comprehensive update on the ever-changing business landscape. At each of these virtual events, we've been giving updates on the Chamber's Roadmap to Recovery initiative. The Chamber has been convening our regional members in more than 15 industry sectors, including agriculture, childcare, high-tech, manufacturing, retail, healthcare, and restaurants, and more. We've had productive and effective roundtables with our county leaders, some of whom you'll hear from today. Together, we are working to map a course for recovery for the business community. Now, 10 months into the pandemic and 3 months into our initiative, we're riding another wave of uncertainty as everyone is concerned about the rise in COVID cases throughout our county. We're facing yet another downturn, but this time the Chamber is more than ready to advocate and support procedures that protect our community's health with a wealth of new information and science that we have gathered through the pandemic experience since March. We have all learned that there are 5 things that are extremely effective in stopping the spread of the virus: proper distancing, mask wearing, plexiglass, sanitizing, and ventilation. It's clear that businesses using this method are operating safely. The hotel, restaurant, and retail industry locally has proven over the past 6 months that they can safely operate and will continue to do so. A sensible response to the rise in cases can help protect us all from COVID-19 and protect us from further economic crisis. The Chamber will continue to work with our community leaders and our businesses to collaboratively protect our health and safety, as well as our livelihoods. This morning, you will hear from Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Gregg Hart, County Chief Executive Officer, Mona Miyasato, and County Assistant CEO, Nancy Anderson. We'll finish the program with a presentation from Dr. Peter Rupert. We continue to work very closely with our county executive team and elected officials, and we want to thank each of them for working tirelessly to help our community and our businesses during this time of crisis. We'd also like to recognize a long list of businesses who have worked tirelessly to change, adapt, and thrive during unprecedented challenges, and who support the Chamber's work through their sponsorships of this event. Our presenting sponsor for this inaugural event is LinkedIn, and we'll hear from them in a moment. I'd also like to thank our corporate sponsors: American Riviera Bank, Atlantic Aviation, Bega North America, Brown & Brown Insurance, Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck, Chevron, Community West Bank, Courtyard by Marriott, Cox Communications, Exxon Mobil, Favre Large Archibald and Spray, FLIR Systems, Goleta Valley Cottage Hospital, Hollister Village, Carl Stores Imaging, Montecito Bank and Trust, Pacific Premier Bank, Plains All-American Pipeline, Residence Inn by Marriott, Sansom Clinic, Signature Flight Support, Southern California Edison, Southern California Gas Company, Spherion, the Ritz-Carlton Bacara Santa Barbara, the Tobes Group, UC Santa Barbara, UCLA Health, and Village Properties. Lastly, we want to thank Lure Digital for filming this morning's production. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Joey Zamaya from LinkedIn.
Hello everyone, my name is Joey Zamaya, Public Sector Leader with LinkedIn. At LinkedIn, our vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. It's what we achieve to aspire in both how we connect the world's professionals on our platform, in addition to how we invest into the communities in which we operate. The way we operationalize that vision is through something called our economic graph, which is our effort to digitally map the global economy. We want a digital representation of every company and every job they offer and the skills required for that job, in addition to a profile for every professional and the skills that they have to qualify for those jobs. The really cool thing about working at LinkedIn is this economic graph gives us a real-life picture of what's going on in the economy, both locally and globally. On LinkedIn, there's over 700 million professionals, representing over 36,000 skills, connecting with over 50 million companies, offering 14 million jobs. So we're able to see what's going on in the economy, and it is irrefutable that this day and age has changed things dramatically, changed things quickly. In fact, ironically, I'm a board member of a chamber that didn't exist a year ago today. So it's no secret that things are changing rapidly, and in order to help our communities recover, we need to change with it. That's why it's our pleasure to be a partner of the Chamber of Commerce and local government and participate in things like the Economic Development Committee. It's important to me personally to be a part of this work as I'm a 9th generation Barbarino. My ancestors were part of establishing the mission. And at a local level and at a national level, there's a lot of work to be done to helping people connect to economic opportunity. It's going to be a long road ahead in terms of our recovery, but I know that with a unified front and with all hands on deck, with partnerships like the Chamber of Commerce, we'll all be a part of the solution in getting work done. Thank you so much for being with us today. And with that, I'd like to introduce the chair of the Santa Barbara County Board of Supervisors, Gregg Hart.
Thank you to the employees of the Hilton Garden Inn for welcoming and hosting us today in this beautiful setting with a world-class view. Thank you to the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce for creating this opportunity to speak directly to residents and business leaders across the entire south coast of Santa Barbara County. I'm joined today by Mona Miyasato, the county's Chief Executive Officer, and Nancy Anderson, Assistant CEO, who's been collaborating with our county's multiple business sectors to aid in the ongoing economic recovery. Let me please take just a moment to thank Ms. Miyasato for her outstanding leadership through the pandemic crisis. There is no one you'd want more in the trenches with you than Mona. I'm so fortunate to work with such a dedicated and capable team that she helms day in and day out at the County of Santa Barbara. I'm also very grateful for the leadership of our Public Health Director, Dr. Vondo Reynoso, and our Public Health Officer, Dr. Henning Anzorg, who work tirelessly every day to protect the health of our community. I'd also like to thank my board colleagues on the Board of Supervisors, 1st District Supervisor Doss Williams, 3rd District Supervisor Joan Hartman, 4th District Supervisor Peter Adam, who will be retiring at the end of this year after 8 years of public service to our community. Supervisor Adam will be replaced on the Board of Supervisors by his very talented and capable staff assistant, Bob Nelson, who was elected to the post last year. And 5th District Supervisor Steve Lavanino, the Dean of the Board, who I've worked closely with for over 20 years. I'll say unequivocally that each of them are dedicated public servants who are striving to make Santa Barbara County the best it can possibly be. 2020 has been a year unlike any in our lifetime. So many have suffered physically, emotionally, and financially, but we will recover, thrive, and prosper. Collectively, our spines had already been stiffened by the too many to count local natural disasters and unfortunate tragedies that we've experienced in the last couple of years. If anyone or any agency can be prepared to deal with a global pandemic, comparatively, our county has done very well in responding to this crisis. At this time, our case rates are much lower than the counties to the north and south of us and far below the state average. Unfortunately, the virus doesn't respect borders, and the largest COVID-19 hotspot in the state of California is just 90 miles to the south of us in Los Angeles. Until we have a widely distributed vaccine next year, we'll be living with the ebbs and flows of this virus. As we're filming today, Governor Newsom is considering the necessity of issuing another statewide stay-at-home order to protect ICU hospital capacity, which is rapidly reaching crisis levels. As Winston Churchill said when Britain was suffering at the height of the Nazi bombing campaign, it is always darkest before the dawn. For all of us, this feels like the darkest hour of the pandemic year. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Later this month, healthcare professionals and first responders will start receiving the first distributions of the new COVID-19 vaccines. We're hearing from health experts that we should see wider availability of vaccines for the general public in the spring and summer of next year. I have strong hope for our future. The County of Santa Barbara is very fortunate to benefit from highly diverse business portfolio, tourism, agriculture, manufacturing, high technology, software, and even commercial launch capacity at Vandenberg Air Force Base. We have it all. Additionally, some of the bigger names in tech, Google, Amazon, Zoom, Apple, and Microsoft, now have a footprint in Santa Barbara County. All this combined with the intellectual heft that spills into our community from startups born by innovators at UCSB has our county well situated to bounce back from the economic recession caused by the pandemic. From early on, the county's focus has been to partner with local business representatives to ensure they have the most up-to-date information necessary to prepare their businesses and to have the technical assistance necessary to keep their employees and customers safe. Kristen Miller and the staff and board of the directors of the Santa Barbara South Coast Chamber of Commerce have been a critically important partner in this effort. Working directly with the Chamber, we've collaborated with over 15 different industry sectors to map a course for recovery. I, along with CEO Miyasato and her county leadership team, have met regularly with Kristen Miller and Chamber board members to discuss what the months and years ahead will hold for our business community. We ask ourselves continuously, a year from today, what will we wish we'd been discussing, prioritizing, and implementing today? As the pandemic has continued, tens of thousands of Santa Barbara County residents have lost their jobs. Many businesses were forced to close their doors, cut back services, or completely reimagine their business model. Parents have lost work and wages staying at home to care for their school-age children. Businesses struggle to pay the rent every month. In a bipartisan effort, Supervisor Lavanino and I brought an urgency ordinance to the board to prohibit commercial evictions. This urgency ordinance temporarily prohibits and suspends commercial evictions arising from loss of income or substantial medical expenses related to COVID-19. It's my hope that this brings some much-needed relief to businesses. Nancy Anderson will provide more information about the county's work with the business community during her presentation. No issues have been more vexing to parents and school officials than the critical decisions about distance learning and reopening campuses for in-person instruction. Each district must weigh a complicated set of high-risk, competing factors with the health and well-being of students, staff, and their families at the forefront of the decision. To help local school districts during this difficult time, the County of Santa Barbara offered liaisons to work directly with school districts to help them make the decisions with the best available information from the Department of Public Health. Susan Klein Rothschild worked at the highest level at the Public Health Department for 11 years and most recently for Stanford University. In addition, the county contracted with Dr. Peggy Dodds, a pediatrician who recently retired from the Public Health Department, to join Ms. Klein Rothschild to provide clinical expertise to support our local schools. Dr. Dodds and Susan Klein Rothschild have provided ongoing assistance to our Santa Barbara County schools as they navigate the myriad of complex issues and challenges associated with COVID-19. One of the most difficult aspects of the county's pandemic response has been addressing long-standing inequities in our healthcare system. We know many community members receive less healthcare than others because of financial struggles, access to care, and language barriers. These inequities are worsened during a global pandemic. The county has partnered with the Latinx and Indigenous Migrant COVID-19 Response Task Force, which is composed of trusted messengers and local farm worker and underrepresented communities, to share key public health messages through videos and brochures and door-to-door visits in neighborhoods. All materials distributed by the county during the pandemic and other emergencies are provided in both English and Spanish. The county works with the Spanish language media to ensure key messages are shared via radio and social media channels. Spanish interpretation of all of our COVID-19 press conferences are available, and to promote access and equitable opportunities for participation in Board of Supervisors hearings, the county has begun providing real-time Spanish interpretation of board meetings. I'm very proud of the county's efforts to provide Spanish language interpretation and translations. It's critical for us to reduce language barriers and bring all Santa Barbara County residents into important conversations about the future of our community. In Santa Barbara County and throughout California, we have far too many people suffering with homelessness. COVID-19 has made the existing situation of homelessness more visible, and housing insecurity is affecting more of our neighbors. Many existing services have been interrupted or altered out of necessity because of physical distancing requirements. Despite these challenges, the county remains determined to work to provide housing opportunities and support for community members experiencing homelessness. The county's Homeless Assistance Program works directly with the unhoused to quickly find safe refuge for people who've lost their housing and provides services and housing for people who've been experiencing homelessness for some time. The county partners with the Housing Authority of Santa Barbara County and other agencies to develop supportive housing projects to reduce homelessness in our community. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the county's Department of Community Services led their local effort to join the state's Project Room Keep program, providing safe, temporary housing to more than 100 medically vulnerable seniors experiencing homelessness. Since the start of this program, more than 40 people have been transitioned into permanent housing. The county has also secured state funding as part of the Project Home Keep program to convert a county office building into long-term supportive housing. The county recently completed a 100-day challenge to end youth homelessness. During this time, 52 youth were connected to safe and stable housing. All of the known homeless youth in the county were connected with an advocate to assist them finding a home. Following the success of this initiative, the county recently initiated a new 100-day challenge to end homelessness among veterans. During this period, we'll work to house half of the veterans experiencing homelessness in Santa Barbara County. The county is committed to continuing to house individuals, provide supportive services, and mitigate the impacts of homelessness on our community. Now, as we're faced with impacts on health and the economy, and as a result of COVID-19, we recognize the critical role transportation projects will provide in creating jobs and in helping to foster economic growth. The Highway 101 multimodal project will add a peak period carpool lane to the freeway. We're now investing in rail service improvements to create a true multimodal corridor between Carpinteria and Goleta. This multimodal project creates not only more rail and highway capacity, but also more accessible walking and bike and pathways. The majority of the Highway 101 project has been funded using the state gas tax. The county is working with Congressman Salud Carbajal and our federal partners to fill the remaining funding gap, and I'm hopeful that a robust federal infrastructure spending bill will help us complete the 101 corridor project. Last month, the county announced the launch of the One Climate Initiative, the county's overarching effort for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, increasing the development and deployment of renewable energy, and strengthening our county's resiliency as we respond to the effects of climate change. By tying our sustainability programs together under the umbrella of One Climate, we hope to better encourage the community in our shared efforts to protect our environment. There are several efforts underway as part of the One Climate Initiative. Last year, the county entered into a community choice energy partnership with the Central Coast Community Energy. Through this program, we will be shifting our regional energy portfolio to carbon-free sources while investing in new renewable energy projects. Another pillar of the One Climate Initiative is the Climate Action Plan. As part of this plan, my colleagues and I adopted a goal for reducing greenhouse gas emissions to 50% of the 1990 levels by 2030. Through the implementation of the Strategic Energy Plan, the county is working to reduce barriers and streamline approval processes for the development of new renewable energy projects in Santa Barbara County, especially utility-scale solar projects. Finally, the county is currently working to engage stakeholders from communities of color and underrepresented communities to inform our response to climate change, promoting equity and environmental justice. The County of Santa Barbara is firmly committed to protecting our environment and moving towards a clean energy future. In conclusion, I want to sincerely thank every resident of Santa Barbara County for their patience, positivity, and perseverance during these extraordinarily difficult times. Working together as a community, we've slowed the spread of the virus before, and we can do it again. We will do it again, and when we do, businesses will be able to reopen, children will return to schools, and we'll be able to visit our friends and family to celebrate important traditional events. With the distribution of vaccines just over the horizon, we must stand together by staying home to protect our family, friends, and neighbors. The vulnerable in our community depend on all of us to protect their health and well-being. I am incredibly proud of the work we have all done together to rise to this challenge. We are a tough, resilient, and compassionate community, and I am honored to have served our community as chair of the Board of Supervisors this past year. Thank you deeply for your confidence and support. Now I have the honor and privilege to introduce Mona Miyasato, the CEO for the County of Santa Barbara.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mona Miyasato, the County Executive Officer, and first of all, thank you to the Chamber for having us this morning, and thank you to all of you, our county businesses, who are facing hardship, adapting, and surviving the best that you can. I've been the County Executive Officer for 7 years now, and during this time I've had to proclaim 17 disasters and emergencies, and I've had to open our Emergency Operations Center over 40 times. But this pandemic, as we know, is unprecedented and has affected our lives in much different ways. I understand it hasn't been easy, it's been erratic, it's been unpredictable and devastating to many. And I also know that many of us would like more certainty, more predictability. Unfortunately, that has depended on the virus, infection, and many directives from the state. But I want you to know that we're doing all that we can, and if we could provide more certainty, we would. But the light is at the end of the tunnel, as Chair Hart said, and it's getting brighter and brighter. And we all know we just need to stay a little more vigilant, a little longer. So thank you for keeping your employees and your families safe during this time. We'll continue to work with you and together find hope, opportunity, and purpose as best we can. So this morning I want to talk about 3 different things. And one is, what's the county been doing during the response? How have we been responding, and how has it impacted us? What we're focusing on now and what we think is going to happen in the future. As you know, the county government in Santa Barbara is the second largest employer. The first largest employer is UCSB, and the third is Cottage Hospital. We're right in the middle there. We have over 4,200 employees. And the county is a business to some degree. We have 21 different departments, 21 different lines of business, and we are a $1.19 billion enterprise. And if you think about it, you can think about our services in three basic ways. About 30% of our operations are dedicated to public safety and the criminal justice system. About a third involves typical municipal type services and community services, such as planning and public works, as well as general governmental services like property assessments, elections, and county clerk functions. And about a third involves health and human services, and that's been highlighted during this pandemic. These are things like mental health, child welfare, adult protection services, and of course, public health, which has been at the forefront of this response. As to our funding, about a third of our funding comes from the state and federal government to provide programs that are largely mandated. A little less than a third comes from local taxes, and the rest from charges for services and licenses and fees. And I say that to let you know that we are dependent heavily on the state and federal government. So what are we doing to respond, and what's the impact been on county? When this began in March, the board made a conscious effort to maintain services to the best we can because, as I said, almost a third of what we do is in the realm of health and human services, and we knew it was important to maintain that level during this pandemic. We used reserves to fill in gaps, which we had thanks to maintaining a rainy day fund, our strategic reserve that we kept adding to every year. And as you know, we are no stranger to emergencies, and so it's important that we keep this level up. We also got needed resources from the state to help us with our COVID response. We were fortunate that the state shared its federal dollars with us because we didn't get a direct allocation from the federal government. So our situation has been stable, but we too are experiencing negative impacts, and again, are very dependent on the state and what it does. In general, we've been addressing and been impacted by the pandemic in three different ways. First is the response. As you know, county government has been on the front lines throughout this whole response, and our first responder has been the public health department, which we're very grateful for. And as Chair Hart said, to acknowledge the leadership of that department is key. But almost all our 21 departments have been standing shoulder to shoulder with our public health department throughout this whole time, working alongside other government agencies, community partners, nonprofits, businesses like yours, and individuals. Our public health department has put in long hours, administering, coordinating, and performing more than 60,000 SARS-CoV-2 tests, more than 12,000 positive case investigations and contact tracing, and over 12,000 hours towards public information and communication. We also have our countywide Office of Emergency Management, where our EOC has been activated since day one, coordinating the activities of our local jurisdictions, special districts, and our public safety personnel. The second impact to us has been losses due to declined economic activity, and I know many of you are feeling this directly. Like cities, we've experienced an impact to our sales taxes and our hotel taxes. For us, these taxes are a smaller portion of our budget, but still just as critical. Now, most of our local revenue is from property taxes, and that's how counties are funded. These have been relatively stable, as property values have been stable or increasing during this time. And we don't see, hopefully not yet, and hopefully not ever, a sharp decline in the values that we witnessed following other recessions. We've also seen greater revenue from cannabis taxes, which are less impacted by recessions. And this year, that revenue is critical in helping us fill budget gaps so that we could continue our critical services. However, we are concerned about next year. The state is facing a deficit, even though they've had more revenue come in than they expected, but they are still facing a deficit, which means possible reductions to some of our local programs, and we'll be working through that in the coming months. And third, we have witnessed an increase in demand for health and human services and safety net programs. For example, Chair Hart talked about some of the homeless initiatives. To ensure homeless individuals were housed and to prevent the spread of COVID-19, we provided more than 16,000 bed nights to homeless individuals through November 30th. Specifically, our Room Keith South shelter, we housed 133 individuals to date, and 57 of those were able to get placed into housing. Also in Isla Vista, we're starting a navigation center and shelter program of 20 temporary emergency shelter units, commonly called pallet shelters, to provide emergency shelter and services to 50 homeless individuals over a 6-month period with the objective of linking these individuals to permanent and safe housing resources. And that center is scheduled to open on December 15th. Another example is in our social services department, where our family and individual assistance caseloads have grown by over 5,000 since this time, which is almost a 10% increase compared to last year. This assistance includes things like CalFresh food benefits and Medi-Cal health insurance. So what are we focusing on now? You heard about many of the initiatives in the county from Chair Hart earlier this morning, but let me highlight just a few more and discuss a few more. We're continuing to focus on the health and safety actions related to the pandemic, and soon an orderly distribution of the vaccine. The state has determined a prioritization, and our health department has been working with community partners to develop local protocols following CDC and the state's instructions. As currently planned, healthcare workers and first responders will be getting the vaccine first, hopefully this month, as well as nursing home residents. This spring, the hope is that distribution can occur so that the rest of us can also be vaccinated. But again, this is all subject to change, and we're watching it carefully. We're also continuing high priority projects that we began prior to COVID. The Northern Branch Jail will be completed early next year. Several decades in the making, it will provide 376 beds, including 32 special use beds for mental health and medical purposes. And this is located outside the city of Santa Maria. The existing jail in Santa Barbara, pre-COVID, housed 800 to 1,000 inmates, but now the average daily population at the jail is down 37%. It's at a historic low due to measures taken to limit the spread of the virus. More discussion is occurring now on efforts on how we can sustain this lower level without jeopardizing public safety, and how we can be cost efficient across the whole jail system. Another project is the Resource Center at the Tahigas landfill, which broke ground in December 2018 and is anticipated to be open in early 2021. It will recover recyclables and organics from our waste stream, generate green energy for the facility and our community, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and produce compost. Other high priority capital projects that we've been working on include some of these: improving our first responder communications network with a new public radio system. This will be particularly important for South Coast public safety response. We're building a new probation department headquarters in downtown Santa Barbara off of Garden Street. We're making improvements to parts of the main jail in Santa Barbara County that will continue to be used after the new Northern Branch Jail is opened, and we're expanding our Emergency Operations Center. Now, it's been 3 years since the tragic Thomas Fire and the January 9th debris flow. Since that time, we've rehabilitated 35 lane miles of road and 16 bridges in Montecito. We are also in the process of developing an 8-acre Randall Road debris basin in an area that was hard hit by the debris flow at San Ysidro Creek and East Valley Road. And in this time, we've not forgotten our commitment to serve those with mental illness. In this year, we've developed 125 new mental health beds throughout the county, serving a range of mental health needs. This includes permanent supportive housing, as well as sobering beds on the county's Cayo campus. This also includes 34 new beds at the Champions Health Center in Lompoc, which recently opened, and this will provide us a needed resources throughout the county for mental health services. In total, over the last 4 years, we've added 156 residential and treatment mental health beds to our community. And early next year, we're planning a minimum of 26 more. So finally, what do we see ahead? A few years ago, we began a journey to renew county government and have redoubled our efforts to transform how we do our work, how we ensure a culture of innovation, greater risk-taking, and accountability. And like many of you, COVID has made us focus on what matters most and given us a new perspective on how we can come back stronger and more resilient as we face this next normal. As vaccination distribution comes into sight, what we see ahead is a road to recovery. And I can't tell you exactly what that looks like, but I can tell you that the destination is returning to a stronger economy, a more resilient community, new collaborations, and incorporating lessons and experiences we've all had this year. This includes forming new partnerships with our business community. It includes being open to creative solutions and working through conflict to make this a better community for everybody. So thank you for having me here today. And with that, I'd like to introduce Nancy Anderson, Assistant County Executive Officer, who will talk about one example of this renewed relationship working with many of you. Thank you.
Good morning. In addition to being an Assistant County Executive Officer for the County of Santa Barbara, I also had the privilege of leading the Reopening and Safe Environment, or RISE project, over the past 9 months and working with many in our business community. We began the RISE project back in April as an attempt to provide local guidance for how to measure the spread of the virus in our community, best practices for containment, and when and how to reopen our industry sectors. The guide was developed by medical experts who live and work in the region, supported by feedback from many sectors of the community. The development of this guide included participation of over 350 individuals in a series of 27 roundtable meetings that included city leaders, local elected officials, chambers of commerce, industry sectors, faith-based communities, representatives of essential workers, and organizations that regularly work with minority and underserved populations. These stakeholders provided valuable insight on the practicalities of what reopening means across diverse communities and uncovered ideas for how to reopen safely across a broad range of community settings. About halfway through the project, the state issued its own resilience roadmap and began issuing industry sector guidance. We modified the RISE guide that was officially issued in May to supplement the state's resilience roadmap and have since maintained it as a living document that has changed over time with additional input, changing conditions, and new information. The latest change was in late August when the governor unveiled the new coronavirus 4-tier color monitoring system for counties, known as the Blueprint for a Safer Economy, which replaced the state's resilience roadmap. As a part of the RISE project, the county also developed an online self-certification process at our recoverysbc.org website. This is for businesses to get approved to reopen. Businesses are required to review state and local guidance, complete a COVID-19 prevention plan, and self-certify that they can open safely. There are over 4,300 businesses that have gone through this process. We keep the site up to date and issue important notifications to the participants. Our top 3 industry sectors continue to be retail stores, restaurants, and office workspaces. The pandemic has caused unprecedented disruption in our community and created significant challenges for our businesses. To offer flexibility and adaptability, several considerations were made. In June, the county developed the Small Business and Community Partnership Enhancement Program, or SBC PEP, a clear, quick path and parameters for businesses and other entities to operate temporarily outdoors to accommodate social distancing. Phase 1 of the program allowed for businesses to expand into adjacent public right-of-way outdoor areas, and Phase 2 developed zoning ordinance amendments providing temporary relief from standards, including setbacks, parking, and the requirement that businesses must operate within enclosed buildings. The County Executive Officer also issued Emergency Rule Number 2, temporarily suspending Chapter 35 zoning regulations and permit restrictions related to wineries and tasting rooms serving food. The Environmental Health Services Division began issuing emergency temporary food permits for those facilities that do not have a food permit but wish to contract with a restaurant or caterer to qualify as a dine-in restaurant. Lastly, as part of the county budget adoption, the Board of Supervisors approved $2.4 million in community and small business assistance funding through rental assistance, disaster relief for workers in isolation, and small business grants. In an effort to find ways to assist businesses during this time, we also focused on outreach and education. The Emergency Operations Center is facilitating a multi-jurisdictional, multidiscipline approach to coordination of education, outreach, compliance, and enforcement of current health orders with businesses and individuals. The primary focus of this effort is the RISE Ambassador Program that is considered the first effort in community education and outreach. The RISE Ambassador Program included inviting all cities to host teams within their jurisdictions, as well as the county managing teams to each population area of unincorporated county. The Ambassador Program is designed to work in coordination with city and county regulatory and enforcement efforts. The county also hosts an online complaint forum at our recoverysbc.org website that allows for community members and businesses to bring non-compliance to the county's attention. And as a final tool of enforcement, the board adopted ordinance for administrative fines for violation of COVID-19 health officer orders in November. So where are we at today on the state's blueprint? Every week, Public Health Department is advised of our county's monitoring status. The risk levels are identified by its now well-known 4-tiered color system of purple, widespread, red, substantial, orange, moderate, and yellow, minimal. The county achieved the red level on September 29th and held it for 7 weeks until November 16th, when several counties across the state reverted back to the purple tier due to escalating case numbers. The most current numbers for the county were issued December 1st for the data week of November 25th. Data is over a 7-day period with a 4-day lag. The adjusted case rate is 10. The new cases per day per 100,000 in population is 14.1. The positivity rate is 4.4, and the health equity metric was not yet available. As you can see, most of the counties in the state are now in the purple tier. The governor has indicated that the state is seriously considering more restrictions, potentially based on certain triggers, and modifications to the stay-at-home order, attempting to further limit public gathering and interaction. We anticipate the uncertainty of the state's orders will continue to impact our local economy and business community. We acknowledge the struggles of businesses that are having to adapt quickly to varying rules, procedures, and directives issued over the past 9 months, and truly applaud the collaboration and their resiliency. We want to thank our business community for the effort they are putting into comply, making sure that their employees and patrons are safe to limit the spread of the virus. I would especially like to acknowledge the RISE team leaders who continue to provide leadership and communication to their respective industry sectors. The success of the RISE project and ongoing efforts to support our business community has been largely in part due to the partnerships, both public and private, that have developed from this crisis. Another new relationship that developed over the past several months is one based on regional collaboration. The REACH Coalition was a main partner in helping to develop the RISE project and guide, and is introducing the county to other collaborative regional efforts. Most recently, they introduced us to the Vandenberg Air Force Base Master Plan in efforts to support the expansion of commercial space industry countywide. The endeavor is anticipated to result in many job opportunities and economic growth in multiple disciplines, including aerospace technology, manufacturing, and engineering. The Board of Supervisors support the initiative that was started by REACH, the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, or GOBIZ, the 30th Space Wing, the United States Space Force, Cal Poly State University, and Deloitte Touche Consulting. We look forward to participating in the success of this exciting initiative in the county. I would now like to introduce the next speaker, who was an important participant in our RISE project, in addition to being our resident expert on economic forecasts, Mr. Peter Rupert.
Good morning, everyone, or whenever it is you're watching this. It's this morning, today. I want to thank the Hilton for allowing us to do this up here. It's beautiful. There's some action going on, of course. We have some jackhammering across the street, planes taking off, which is always good to see. So, I especially want to thank the people here who are speaking today. I have really firsthand knowledge of watching what people have done during this pandemic. I've seen the groups come together like I've never seen before. The supervisors, the city council, the county itself, the Chamber of Commerce, who now is the South County Chamber, have merged. It's taken lots of years for this to happen. Now it just took a few months for all of this to happen. And it's really, really encouraging to see. I really thank Gregg for all the work he's done. I was lucky enough to be on a task force with Nancy, and we continue to work together. Kristen's done a great job. So I think that, things are looking good on that front. We're really coming together. However, we've got some issues. I think many of you now know that we're looking at something like a third wave in the United States, pretty much in Santa Barbara as well. If you look back over the history of the pandemic, back in April, we had at a peak back in April and May about 60,000 hospitalizations. Then we hit a low, and then it came back to another 60,000. As of yesterday, we have 100,000 people in the United States hospitalized with COVID. This is a huge increase, and we're also seeing an increase here in Santa Barbara as well. Gregg mentioned that people here have worked hard in the trenches. So what trenches mean typically is about a war. And by the way, we're in a war. And I think it's something we really need to realize a little more seriously. So what do I mean by a war? Well, a war is we're fighting against something that's hard to defeat. And if we had an audience here, what I would say is, I would ask a question. And the question is, I'm a professor of economics, right? So I always have to have a quiz. So here's the quiz. In the history of mankind, how many diseases have been eradicated? Fully eradicated? Any guesses? One. In the history of civilization, one disease has been eradicated. I won't make you Google it. It's smallpox. The only one that's been eradicated. What this means basically is that these diseases are hard to win. They're hard to beat, even with a vaccine. And by the way, the vaccine is still months and months away from being developed. And just like in a war, there's collateral damage. What's the collateral damage? Not just are we losing lives and there's health risk, people are losing jobs. We've seen nothing like this before in any basic recession. This is something really unseen. And the reason that makes this difficult is we don't know how to react. We're seeing something for the first time. We're trying our best. Not easy, of course. So when we look at Santa Barbara County and we see what's happened with our hospitalizations, we had a low a couple months ago of about 10. Earlier, we had a high of something around 30. In just a few days, we went from 10 hospitalizations up to 40. Now, we're not close to what we were before, so our third wave isn't as high as our second wave, but it's something that we have to take consideration of. And as we now know, the governor is going to make an announcement today at noon, and that announcement is going to be based on such things as caseloads, hospitalizations, etc. What were the real reasons for shutting us down, for shutting non-essential businesses down? Well, the most common reason that people talk about is trying to flatten the curve. And flattening the curve on the health front basically means we're trying to stop excessive caseloads and overcrowd our hospitals. If you look at the current projections going into late December, if the current rate continues, many hospitals are going to be over 100% capacity, which means we really have to redouble our efforts and think about this disaster in the right way. Now, I'm all for personal freedom. I'm not sure how the mask became a political entity. And I reserve the right for any individual to feel if they want to get sick, go ahead and get sick. What you should not do as an individual is get other people sick. And that's the whole point of trying to curb this pandemic. We call that in economics an externality. And an externality is something that you do as a personal decision that's going to affect other people in society in a negative way, perhaps. And what we try to do is say we have to fix that externality. One way to fix the externality is to enforce masks. Obviously, if everybody decided that this war was worth winning, everyone would wear a mask, everyone would stay home. Now, have we done this the right way? Possibly not. I'm not going to argue whether we could have done it better. We had some very difficult decisions to make, shutting down the economy, closing down State Street to cars, doing things on the spur of the moment. Of course, if we had the ability to be able to say, you know what, if a pandemic really occurs, what are we going to do? Unfortunately, we did not do that. We should have done it. And if you go back to 2005, President Bush at that time had an hour-long talk to the National Institute of Health, basically saying that the next big fear for our economy is a pandemic. President Obama reiterated that just a few years ago. And in fact, the Council of Economic Advisors in September of last year basically had a 40-page report explaining the problems of a pandemic and where we would be and the kinds of budgets we were going to face. So what are the economic risks moving forward? Well, obviously, if there's another shutdown and there's a stay-at-home order today and many more businesses close, that's going to be tragic. Will there be another stimulus package? Unfortunately, it seems the federal government isn't as good as our county government. We were able to get together and make some good decisions. They're fighting for weeks now, months over another stimulus package when people are suffering. The least they could do is get together and help those individuals who are suffering from something that they did not cause. California budget, as mentioned, California budget, initially we thought it was going to be pretty bad. There was a windfall of about $26 billion. Gregg, basically from the Legislative Analyst's Office, gave a nice report on this. That $26 billion windfall, they're suggesting to the legislature that about half of it goes into a rainy day fund and the other half to fight suffering from the pandemic. So that's very good for us. Having said that, they also said there's going to be a structural deficit moving forward over the next several years. So it's not that this windfall is going to take care of everything. A few things that I worry about are one is long-term unemployment. Basically, what's happened today, when you look back in April and May, what you saw was the fraction of people who were long-term unemployed as a fraction of the entire unemployment pool fell like a stone. Why is that? Because we had 20 million people become unemployed in a week. And then what happened over time, we're now seeing, in a few months, we're seeing more people, almost 50% of the unemployment pool, being unemployed for 27 weeks or longer. So what does that mean? What it means for individuals is they lose skills. They lose being in the labor force. Those kinds of long-term effects can be very damaging, not just for their future economic lives, but also for things like depression, alcoholism, those kinds of things when people are not able to work for a long period of time. So just talking about a few numbers, I mean, if you think about what happens during a normal recession, and I'm going to talk about the Great Recession, which is not a normal recession, but that's what I'm going to compare it to. So you look at unemployment rate in Santa Barbara County. We went from about 3.5% unemployment to about 10% over a period of about 3 or 4 years during the Great Recession. And it took us about 6 years to get back down to 3 or 4%. Contrast that to what's happened since the pandemic. In just a couple months, we went from 4% unemployment up to close to 15% unemployment. That happened so quickly in a blink of an eye. That kind of thing overwhelmed our unemployment insurance system, obviously. The state of California had to ask for federal help. That was not flattening the unemployment curve, even though we partially flattened the virus curve. If you look at the number of people unemployed in Santa Barbara, the number of people unemployed typically is around 7,000 people unemployed. During the Great Recession, again, over many years, that rose up to 10,000 and then to 20,000 people. It fell over the next few years, and again, back in April and May, we went to about 30,000 people being unemployed in Santa Barbara County. It's since dropped to about half, but we're still about where we were at the bottom of the Great Recession, about 15,000 people still unemployed in Santa Barbara County. Who did this hit? Well, obviously it hit things differentially. We know where people got hurt. And the problem with that is the people who were hurt were people who could least afford it. And it turns out that the retail sector, which lost thousands of workers, the leisure and hospitality sector, accommodations, food, etc., lost thousands of workers, tens of thousands of workers. These are workers who are very low income, typically. Those individuals do not have savings to last 6, 7, 8 months. And now if we're going to look at another shutdown or a partial shutdown moving forward into the next summer, we're going to see a lot of individuals who are suffering even more. So what's going to be happening in the near future? Well, there are certain health risks for sure. The ending of many programs. It was great to hear Gregg talk about eviction moratoriums again. These are very important. It turns out there's a recent study out that's showing that even when there was a moratorium, in many states it ended in September, that there were tens of thousands of excess deaths due to evictions. How can that possibly be? Well, if people get evicted, many things happen. Number one, they could move in with other family members, increasing the size of the household, therefore spreading the disease even faster. So there are many things that can happen, just not the person becomes homeless. Things are even worse than that. The stimulus package. Again, I mentioned that. Is the government going to come up with it? Is it going to be what the Republicans wanted, what the Democrats wanted? At one point, they were, $1 trillion apart from each other, roughly. So I think that what we have to do is we have to see stimulus programs. Why is that? I never encourage stimulus programs typically. And during a recession, there's really not much the government can do. They can provide support to people who need it. Here, what we're talking about is businesses shut down by government fiat. Government said non-essential businesses must close. That then tells me that those legislators who make this decision should also help those people who they forced out of business. That's a tough call in this environment, obviously. So where are we going to be 6 months from now? Well, if we all are more vigilant at figuring out what we need to do, how to stay safe, those people who are most at risk, stay home. You can save a lot by staying at home, not spreading it to other people. What we really care about are those people who are called super spreaders. Super spreaders are people who actually infect a lot of people. Again, if we're not going to see a vaccine widely distributed until the summer, we have a lot to do between now and then. Anyway, I want to say thank you very much for having me today, and stay safe, everybody. Thank you.
We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in today. Thank you for your commitment to our community, and we look forward to seeing you on the South Coast.